Welcome to this edition of Master Talks from WeDesign, part of our program in executive education in fashion sustainability. Our guest this week is Francis Wong, Global Creative Director of WGSN, the Global Style Network, a real authority on what's going on around the world. Welcome. Our guest today is Francis Wong, Global Creative Director and Vice President of WGSN. Hey Francis, how are you?
Good, thank you, Simon.
So Francis, I know you come from Hong Kong,
yes.
And here we are in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you start off, in what industry, and how do you end up in this position?
Okay, my background is a little bit not very usual for a creative person because I was actually trained as an engineer to start with. I studied like satellite, mobile phone, and then I changed to study IT, like software engineer. I got a job. My first job is working as an IT manager for the Hong Kong government for education. After a few years working for them, I moved to start teaching in a university in Hong Kong and become a professor for IT integrated education. But I always loved creative, so never really stopped making things using my hand, taking photos, and creating music, etc. So I have a chance to move to New York, and then I just decided, you know what, I should do something that I really like. Then I changed my career and then start working in advertising in New York. For a year after that, then I moved on and working for a startup at that time called StyleSite. And then a few years later, StyleSite got bought by WGSN, and now here I am. Like it's 12 years now.
Yeah, wow. I remember, so I was in England when WGSN was created, and it was a global style network. Mm-hmm. So the idea is that you predict trends, and then fashion and every other type of company that makes products can mm-hmm. look at your predictions and build product according to those trends. Mm-hmm. And so what's your role, and how is WGSN involved?
So as the Global Creative Director, I oversee the creative and try to link all the different people and departments work together in a creative way.
How many countries are you in?
We operate in more than 30 countries, but our clients come from more than 100 countries.
Right.
So we have offices in 30 countries. Some of them are our partners, and some of them are our own employees. We are really a truly global company because we have people everywhere.
And servicing that kind of global entity as the Global Creative Director mm-hmm. means I know you spend a lot of time on planes.
Yes, especially I start to spend more time in Asia because that is really a very important region for us. And especially because I'm also come from Asia, so there is a certain comfort that I'm going back and people like to see me. So I go to China, especially last few years, quite a lot.
So our program is themed all around fashion sustainability. And as someone that's very, very interested in fashion, as you always have been personally and of course now professionally, mm-hmm. and as someone that travels the world, you have a unique perspective on that. And that's what I want to start to explore in this conversation.
Okay.
So let's start with fashion sustainability. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you think is being led by the industry or by the consumer?
If I have to pick one, I would say consumer. But I think be more specific is actually led by the young generation of consumer. But at the same time, this consumer is actually also going to the workforce. Right? So they are also leading a role. They are the consumer, want to buy something more sustainable, but because they are also become now the designer or the chief product officer in the brand, so they are also driving this in the company now. I would say it's not a consumer or the brand driving it. It's actually the younger generation driving it.
Right, and this is something that you've picked up on both through your travels, but also, of course, you're inside mm-hmm. so many leading design companies around the world through your work at WGSN. Mm-hmm. So is this something you're getting from them as well?
Yes, so definitely I can see there is more and more ask from our customer, want to understand what is the best practice and which area they should focusing on, and how to partnership with company that already have some success or material or practice or anything that in that area. So we got a lot of asks from our customer.
Yeah, I find that fascinating because companies used to think they were dictating to their customer. They were setting the trends and the customer could buy into them. But now, clearly, there's a customer groundswell of opinion. Are you finding a big difference between millennials and Generation X and Generation Y and Generation Z at this point?
Millennial and Gen Z have more similarity compared to Gen X and Gen Y. I think the biggest tipping point here is digital, right? So we're saying that the Gen Z is, everyone is growing up with digital, with their internet, with their phone. So, and the Gen Z and Gen Y, and Gen X, like my age, we are the generation that in between. So we know what is analog, we grew up with that a little bit and then start to migrate to digital. But if the boomer, the generation, they are totally in growing up or study in an analog age. So that drives a lot of different behavior. And one of the most important behavior for the consumer now is like the young generation of consumer, they are researcher. Because they have the two, right? They
have everything, every bit of information in the world in their pocket.
Exactly. So they don't trust some information by just looking into the traditional media, like advertising on TV or magazine or the powerful newspaper. And they are not immediately say, oh, because blah 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 recommend this on the newspaper, so I'm going to go for that. No, that is not what they want. They want to be the researcher. They want to understand the story, get to the bottom of how this made, who's making it, and they want to have be authentic. They want to buy things authentic.
So it's funny because I agree with that, and I've certainly seen evidence of it. And yet, I don't know if I'm ready to say that this generation is more informed than previous generations.
I mean, it's definitely information overload is the word that we use a lot, right? So you can consider information is to inform people about what's happening, but because of so many information, it's really hard to know where we choose. So it's really takes some skills and focus to try to dig into what is the true story. So the fake news we talk a lot is very important, but we also get a lot of awareness of how can we really focusing on the real information for this generation.
So much of what WGSN does is identify trends and then research them and then share them with your clients. Do you think that activism is becoming a trend? Because if you look at the phenomenal attention paid to Greta Thunberg, so the young woman that just crossed the Atlantic to, she's leading the climate strikes from school, 16-year-old young woman. Do you think that the behavior of activists like that is having an effect in ways that it didn't before? Because we always had, Greenpeace and other activists, but it seems different now.
Again, the biggest difference is because of online. So you get things much more in the surface level. Everyone see it happening, right? So something happened today in the other side of the world, and then you basically instantly you will see what's happening. And in the old days, something happened, it just doesn't grow as fast because things contain in a very small geographic location. And now, to find the same, still the whole thing about movement is about finding the same voice, finding your same people, finding the community. And now because of two, it's much easier to grow the community. And once the community is there, and then you can start a movement. So that's why you see it's a circle that you start a movement, it's much faster, it gets bigger. So that's why you see much more happening now.
And so what do you think about corporations trying to start movements? Because any corporation would love to start a movement that involves buying their product. You invent a game, you want to make it a trend, and you want it to be on trend so people buy the game, etc. So, but it can go beyond that because certain companies get behind activist movements. Have you seen much evidence of that? Is that something that when you talk to your clients about this is a trend going on, do they say to you, well, should we get behind it? Should we make it one of our trends?
I totally seeing it. So I think especially the last few years is keep changing. The first front runner, when they're doing it, they take some risk because they don't know, we are basically making a decision that maybe we will piss off some of our customers by doing something that we believe, right? A lot of corporations traditionally, they want to protect all the customer base because the customer base is everything. But now, because of so many choices, competition, and corporations actually understand that you cannot win everyone, but you have to really, really fix your base of customer and then grow on that. If you want to do that, you have to have something for your customer to rely on, to associate with. So I can see the brand start to understand that is actually how you can have a more sustainable business model. And that's why I think it's not about the corporation doing it. It's actually, they don't have choice anymore. You have to, or you are going to go away in 5-10 years.
Well, it's true, but I think also some corporations seem to take that choice anyway. You know, if you look at, for example, Nike's recent 25th anniversary of Just Do It, they had Colin Kaepernick, which is a very divisive figure in this country. And yet they were like, no, okay, he's our number one. We're going with that. And that was a big, they could have just stuck with, you know, Venus Williams or someone of a similar stature and not needed that controversy, but they decided to jump in it. So they made a conscious decision to stand for activism. Is that something you're seeing anywhere else?
Yeah, you see a lot of sport brand and doing this. I think the bigger the brand is, they feel like they actually under the pressure have to do it. You know, for example, like Google doing something like this.
Yeah, you can imagine them saying, we're so big. I mean, I remember famously, Michael Jordan once said about his shoes, Republicans buy my shoes too, which was his way of saying, I'm not going to say something controversial because half my customers are on one side and half on the other. You can't say that anymore. So I think people are the tool of, again, internet, especially social media, and give everyone a tool to try to give their opinion in a way that they don't have to really stand in front of someone to be responsible. So, you know, just like the example you said, I actually, in WGSN, we track a lot of this kind of things, right? We go to social media, and not just looking at the post, it's actually looking about the people's response. And then when you see people's response, you can see, you know, what the argument and then where they're going to. Yeah, definitely, the world, no matter where you go, is getting a little more, you know, polarized. There's two extreme of voice. But again, going back to the brand, I think most of the brand understand that you cannot win the world. And then if once you pick it, you stick to it, you actually will have a much stronger base of consumer and stay with you, and then the business is okay. It's great. That's an important point. I'm so glad you made that, because you're right. You've got to have and ironically, you know, there's a great deal of trouble in this country right now with a president who's entirely polarizing and plays to one section of the community, and that's all. And people are very against that because they're like, as a president, you should be more balanced. You should be everyone's president. And you know, he's not. He's doubling down on his people, you know, and that's working for him. So, you know, you're like, on the one hand, yeah, it's good. It's a smart way to run your business. It's how you build your business. On the other hand, that's not supposed to be like that.
Yeah, so this is exactly almost like the retail industry, right? So if you have one belief, you stick to it, you will have your consumer base, but you may lose some of them. But we all know that, you know, any business, a profitable business, there will be someone try to enter to the market and try to be your competitor. So in order to try to protect everything, losing your personality and brand, and actually it's smarter to just focusing on what you believe you're good at and grow that culture and grow that customer.
So, all right, so let's come right back to fashion then. So you travel the world. I know you love shopping personally as well as professionally. Francis has the biggest collection of fashion I've ever seen. Anyone who's an influencer gets free clothes, you're not even close. But so what have you seen in your travels that has inspired you with new retail? Because, you know, WGSN is about identifying trends. You don't got to give away any secrets, but what's going on that's really cool that you're interested in? I
mean, the one thing that is not, a lot of trend that we talk about is not totally brand new idea come from nowhere. A lot of them is the evolution of something happening, and then we see it getting bigger and bigger or more influence. So one of the things that we actually have been tracking is the second-hand market.
Right.
So we're selling a second-hand market, and that market is just exponential, growing bigger and bigger worldwide. You know, back into the days, I always love to go to Japan to buy second-hand clothes. It's considered, you know, very hip, but it's very small group of people would like to wear something people already wear that before. But now, I think the whole idea of mixing a few other idea of people are more willing to share. Like you look at Airbnb, you look at the model of WeWork, and it's all about sharing economy. So sharing clothing, sharing shoes, sharing everything will become kind of more like how people are accepting the idea. This is number one thing that I see. So second-hand market getting very big. You call it second-hand, recycle,
do you see, I mean, we're familiar with the Real here that just achieved that huge valuation. Have you seen other big success stories of individual companies, or is it mainly a sort of mum and pop or individual person with a small thrift store in any given town?
The one particular company that I really like, they're not worldwide known because they are Japan-based. They call riveting. So they have many stores in Tokyo, in all different cities in Japan. So they are basically doing consignment, right? So but their consignment service is you are taking your clothes that you don't wear anymore, and they buy from you.
Yeah.
They may give you like maybe 10% of the cost that you originally buy. But for a lot of people, especially in Japan, living in such a small place, they rather get rid of that so that they have some space to get something else, right?
Yeah.
And they also feel like they're doing something good because they're not throwing them away. And then the very interesting thing is like this shop is not just buying your clothes and putting on the rack and let other people buying it. They clean it, they restyling it, and they give service. And when you're selling your clothes, they have a coffee shop and you can sit down, have a coffee, enjoy the music. And the whole experience is about selling clothes and become part of your lifestyle. And going to a second-hand shop is also become something that is fun. It's a community. And then now that company have their own credit card, their own service. They're big in Japan. So I think I can see this kind of model is going to be bigger and bigger. We also see like online company, they make the whole process of selling second-hand much easier. They give you, you can just get a paper bag and then you put your clothes inside and then close it and mail it there, and then they will do everything for you, cleaning, taking pictures and putting online and selling it, and just cut 50%. So I can see the whole idea of retail also start to become a service industry.
That's fantastic because in this series we're talking to people at different positions within the industry, vastly different, and yet the same themes are coming up. Clearly, recycling clothing, reselling existing clothing, but being part of the culture, thinking a retailer's thinking of not can I sell you a jacket, but can I sell you an experience that includes you buying a jacket, but involves much more than that. Maybe I make a few pennies on the coffee that you buy. Maybe there's some other element of it that I monetize, but it becomes for you. It becomes an experience. Instead of going into a shop on a Saturday, you spend Saturday afternoon at the club, which happens to be the store, where you happen to pick stuff up. It's amazing how retail hasn't evolved to realize that in so many places. I mean, I look at some of the big companies and think, how are you still in business? You're not doing anything.
You're totally right. I think retail has to really rethink about the model. I gave a speech when I was in Hong Kong talking to properties management company. Shopping mall, which is really popular in Asia, they're suffering. They're suffering to find talent to go there. If you look at the traditional retail model, 50% of the shop are clothing, fashion store, right? So you go to a shopping mall, most of the store are clothing. And now actually we see a shift of having more experience, and especially for food, like more restaurants or cocktail place and drink, but it's still not fast enough. You cannot
We're still
change
200
everything.
years old, isn't it? I mean, 200 years ago, they probably had stores selling clothes and food. Is that what we still do?
It's the same. So, but the difference is again, this last 20 years, is the digital, right? It's just changed everything. And now transaction, which is the retail really looking at, is to close, right? People are going to cashier and pay for the money and give your credit card. And that transaction, a lot of the time, is happening online. People don't really necessarily have to go to a physical space to do that transaction. So then you have to really rethink about what is the retail space really means for in that all the changes. And part of the things that we talk about is people are going to the space because of experience, also because they want to associate with the brand in a more physical way. If the shopping mall and the shop is really showing they are really supporting recycling or sustainability, we actually start to see shopping mall in Australia. They are doing this. They make sure that they have floor or space. You have to certify for a certain level that you have to be green. You have to be used like labor, paying your fair pay to them, in order to have a shop in the shopping mall.
It's the poster child is always Apple. I go into an Apple store every couple of weeks, not because I need anything, because I just like it. I can always think of a question. Everyone in there knows something, so the experience is enjoyable.
Exactly.
They're smart people. They're interested. They know what they're doing. You can play on a phone, play on a computer. I can take my kid in there. and play on a computer. You know, it's like the experience is enjoyable.
Yeah, and end up you order the phone online.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so your transaction is not in the store. The store giving you the experience.
Their return per square meter is higher than any other retail concept ever.
Exactly.
It's bonkers.
Yeah, you have kind of to rethink about what is the sale, is how do you bring the online, offline model together as a whole.
So how are these big, particularly American, but not just, how are these big companies still in business? Where the service is diabolical and you're only really going in there to get something that you need, which you could do so much easier standing outside the store on your phone. How are they? I don't know how they're still in business.
You know, I think everyone's struggling. The whole industry is struggling, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why so many questions clients asking, and we see everyone try to do something different. Not always success, but it's definitely something that is happening.
Yeah.
I would say in the next 5 to 10 years, there may be a lot of companies exist today, will not be there anymore. But there is, at the same time, there's a new model coming in. For example, the direct-to-consumer brand. They are getting so much business now, right? You only sell 3 things. You make 3 products, very well known for that. You set up a website, you directly ship it to your customer. You don't have any middleman in the middle. And that the model going so fast, and that can be like disrupt the market and make a lot of the big brands, they don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah. I mean, the experience thing we're finding with WeDesign, because we work with shopping malls and they have stores and restaurants and then some more space, and they're like, what can we do? And from our point of view, the blended version of learning about design on your phone and then being able to go to a physical location like an Apple store and play with design and then maybe make something is a completely different experience in a shopping mall. And that's what they're all crying out for, experience.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I remember when you and I talked a while back, you were the first one to tell me about K11, which at the time was only in Hong Kong. And now, of course, that model is
Yes,
going
everywhere
up.
in China.
Yeah. And not for nothing. I mean, you go in there and you experience things.
And for this topic, one thing that we see is like also the definition of luxury and what is luxury for people. And actually, some of the idea for luxury is people interaction, because we are so easy to get online, have our phone, to have most of the time spending there, and then to have a real people and people time, it become very valuable.
Yeah.
So to create a space for people to have reason to go and see each other is a very important part.
And in the spirit of sustainable fashion, as we're talking about now, that creates an experience which doesn't involve making a product that we don't need. It still involves movement of money. You know, we live in capitalist society largely. We need to move money around, we need to grow, we need to provide people with jobs. But they can be different. You know, they don't have to be in traditional manufacturing and then disposal.
Totally. That's why I mentioned about the surface part. So I think the surface and provide something that is disappear. Actually, you do it. Like, you know, for example, making a cocktail. Instead of buying a drink that maybe just $3, you will go to a restaurant and have a cocktail for 15, which is 5 times more. Possibly the ingredient, everything is the same. And why people willing to pay that $15? Because there's a process there, and you consume the process, and the process is going away. Right? It's very sustainable, but you enjoy. Like at the end, the consumer want to use the money to buy happiness.
Exactly, and I think there's also the association. You know, like you can make the comparison with a pair of chinos. You can say, well, you know, the Gap makes chinos, and you can probably get them online cheaper, and you can get them from Gucci. You know, so or from Cucinelli or something.
It's all the idea.
It's the same thing. You know, slightly different fabric, slightly better, but there's not that much difference in it. But it's the experience. It's like, what group do you want to be in? You want to
it's
be
the experience.
Yeah.
It's also the brand, you know, that you associate with.
What do they spend on making you feel part of that community?
Correct.
And the irony is, it's not new.
It's not new.
No.
It's always like this. It's just the speed is different and the media is different. So speed is a very, very big thing because it's never happened like this before.
Yeah.
So we all have to readjust our pace to try to catch up the market, or we have to create that pace.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest challenge for everyone.
So when you're talking to brands and they come to you for advice, and particularly you in person because of your position, when they say, what do we do? How do we approach this? I mean, how do you begin to give them ideas or I mean, improve your service, you know, provide something that people can actually enjoy doing rather than just a thing they can buy?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very big question. To start with, like WGSN, we provide a lot of analysis and report. We track a lot of trend and support by data, and so that we already know what is happening. But for individual brand, they really want something very deep to their core. They will come to us to our mindset service, which is our advisory service. We're looking into individual case. A lot of them is really helping them to define their consumer space and to define their strategy of what in the future they really want to do, and helping them to be focused. I think for a brand, a lot of brands want to do so many things and then they have nothing success. And for us, we are helping them to be focused and what can bring you the success that you want in the next 5 years is what we're doing.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and it's so interesting because I give a lot of speeches around the world about design thinking, but the message is always the same.
Because it's the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And yet people seem to build big businesses not doing that, and then they fail, and they're like, oh, what happened there? I was doing really well. And yet things, the French say, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
So give me a last bit of advice that you would give to a brand that's thinking, I need to evolve. I can see the writing's on the wall. It's going to change. I've got to do something. I'm doing well right now, but it's not going to last forever.
It's really hard to do, but I think thinking long term. Thinking long term in terms of so many ways. Thinking long term about the product that you design and produce. Can they last? Can they pass to generation? Can they be used more than 1 time, 10 times, 100 times? So think long term in this way. Think long term about what is your impact bringing to the society and your consumer, right? What is the message, education, and idea and vision that you're bringing to your product and build your culture. Bringing a long-term strategy into your internal employee, because something that you want to do in your product, you have to start with yourself, you have to start with your core. If you are not being green in your office, you cannot make green product. So you have to start with yourself. Think long-term will be the one sentence that I will give it to my client.
Yeah, that's irrefutable. Well, Francis Wong, Global Creative Director at WGSN, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Now join us online and on social media with our experts so we can answer your questions directly and keep this conversation going.